Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us at Tenbound. We've got a great session for you today, talking about researching accounts and contacts. Just want to give a reminder that this session will be recorded, and feel free to follow us at Tenbound on all social channels to stay up to date. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A section, which is on the right. We're in the Conversations tab. And I'll be throwing it over to James Buckley, who's Director of Business Development from JB Sales Training.
Yeah, what's up? How's everybody doing? Thanks a lot for coming to this show. This is going to be a good one. What's poppin'? I am your moderator, James Say What Sales Buckley. You're here to learn about strategies and techniques around researching and contacts. We're going to deliver that for you. First, a big shout out to Tenbound, David, Vivian. It's been great working with you. This has been a long-term goal of mine to be a part of this particular conference. Liz Gaherty, did I say that right? I think I said that right. From SalesLoft is joining us, so welcome. Jordan Naylor, Director of Enterprise Sales at Kronologic, and Jameson Pence of LeadIQ is with us. Big fan of LeadIQ. You guys are super creative. Before we get started, I want to get a vibe for the room. So, several of you in here, put a 1 in the chat if you've ever started doing research and then looked up and an hour had passed by and you don't know where that hour went. Let me get a 1 in the chat from you if you are like me and that happens to you frequently. We're going to do some research-related Q&A. We're going to do lots of Q&A, so be sure you submit questions in the Q&A section because we want to leave time at the end for that. So let's get it going. Welcome to this session. Guys, let's talk about why this is important. Set the stage and tell us why research is so important. Let's start with Liz.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love the introduction. I think for me and my team, when I think about research and personalization, I just think of you have to be more than just sending the normal messaging these days. Like you have to be doing more to stand out. So really doubling down on your prospects that you're reaching out to, what they care about, what they're responsible for, what their challenges are, taking the time to do that, uncovering and figure out that information is so key because it makes you that much better and puts you that much more ahead of the other people who are trying to get their time as well, especially in a world where everyone is busy and everyone is on meetings and nobody has time. You just have to put in the work to do the research these days. It's so important to success.
Yeah, Jordan, jump on in, man. What do you guys think when you think about why it's important? Why are we talking about research today?
Yeah, absolutely. I really echo what Liz said. People are very busy. These days, they've got a lot of sales calls. I know as a director of sales, people reach out to me all the time. And when someone has gone above and beyond to show that they know something about me, know something about my business, it makes it much more intriguing for me to have a conversation. And I know that, all of the reps that I work with at Kronologic, if you can prove to the customer that you know more about their business than they think that you do, their view of you as a credible person is much higher at the beginning of that conversation. So,
yeah, Jameson, what do you got? I know LeadIQ gets those crazy insights, right? I see you guys all the time, super creative. You guys are out there. When you think about personalization, I know that looks different for creative minds than business minds. So what do you guys think about when you think about personalization and research?
Yeah, great question. Kind of piggybacking off Jordan and Liz, I think a big part of it is the amount of time that you can save. And you kind of have to reallocate a lot of the time that you're doing so that you can spend more time with reaching out to prospects in a very personalized manner. So kind of think about it in terms of, hey, who is this person that we're reaching out to, rather than like, what does that persona care so much about? More of like, who's this person that I'm talking to? And a lot of that's done when we research them on LinkedIn. So I think that's a big part is using what they have on their LinkedIn and then pushing that directly into our sales engagement tools so that we can focus more of our time on personalizing directly to who they are.
That's good. That's good. Let's fire off some great tips. I want to do some rapid fire tips. We're going to go around the room. I'm going to start it off. When you're looking at somebody's LinkedIn profile, read their about page and their job description. Here's what you're looking for. You're looking for, in their about page, their love language. How do they talk? What language do they use? Are they talking about data? Are they using percentages? Do they have formulas in there? That's how you need to talk to that person. But if they're using words like amazing, fantastic, wonderful, these people don't care about the data or the numbers. They care about how you make them feel. So adjust your approach to line up with that. What do you guys have as far as research? Quick tips. Let's start with Jameson this time. Throw a quick tip out there for everybody.
Yeah, so I think a big part of that is like you want to see who that person is rather than like, and that's where you want to kind of start it off as like, hey, who are they? I think we need to have a higher standard of outreach, and it's got to be direct one-to-one communication. So if it looks like a marketing email, don't send it, because you're going to increase the likelihood of ending up on blacklists, ending up in a spam trap, and you create kind of a negative awareness of yourself. So all communication from a rep should be one-to-one, very personalized.
That's good. We do have a good question here before we go over to Jordan for his tip. This is a good question. I want to make sure, hey guys, put your questions in the Q&A. If you put them in the chat, they're going to get buried, right? So this is a good question from, I hope I'm saying your name right. It's Oriel. Is it Oriel? So do you guys use some sort of customization template for the SDRs? Or do you give them more of an open option to write what they want? It's a great question. What do you got? Jordan, Let's get to that answer real quick from Liz, because I know that she talks a lot about templates.
Yeah,
and then we'll come back to you for that tip. I want that tip from you. So what's the magic answer here from you, Liz?
Yeah, I wish I had a magic answer, but I would say the one that we're finding to be most close to magic is about 70-30. So I would say it starts with 20% hyper-personalize what you found from a trigger from their LinkedIn. Have you been referred to somebody that is at their same company? And then 70% like a need or a give. So your value prop, what problems you'll solve for them, how it will tie to their persona. And then I would say a 10% to be a call to action. So it's a 3-part framework. I wouldn't say it's a total template. There's still some lift in there, but I would say try to spend the top 20% of your email making sure that when they read that, they know, hey, this was written for me. I'm going to keep reading, and then make sure to tie your value prop into that and be very direct and concise, and always have a strong call to action. That's kind of my framework that we've seen working.
That's good, Oriel. I hope that answered your question. Jordan, what is your top tip that you want to deliver? Thank you very much for that, Liz. We appreciate it. Jordan, top tip
I hope that answered the question.
for the research.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, like you said, if it's a very business profile, that's more of them as part of their organization, which isn't very easy to build rapport off of, right? Everyone asks, a little bit about their past and, maybe what you've done in previous roles. But if there's anything in there that you can gather that shows more about them as a person, whether it's profile pictures or, charities that they've been involved with and things like that, those are topics of conversation that I think can build a lot of rapport very quickly to give you that like personal connection with them and make them feel more as an individual that also works at an organization versus an individual within the organization. So typically that's my biggest recommendation, is build that personalization, that personal rapport with them very quickly.
That's good. Let me get a 2 in the chat if you feel like you could use help building rapport quickly. And I should see a lot of 2s in this chat, because that is a skill that people struggle with consistently. And let me tell you the best thing that I did, I bagged groceries when I was younger. You know how you have like 30 seconds to get to build rapport from the front of the rest of the grocery store to their car. And that's how long you have to build rapport if you want to get a good tip for helping somebody to their car with their groceries. So I learned a valuable lesson there. Liz, let's do it. What's your top tip for research and what people should know coming away from this?
Yeah, I would say the best way to master research and personalizing as a whole when you're reaching out to contacts or accounts is, 1, to practice and have a framework. I found that they're the easiest way to develop a framework for whatever industry or motion you're reaching out to is to figure out what trigger events are relevant to your prospecting process. So is it company changes? Is it when mergers or acquisitions happen? Is it when someone leaves and first joins another company? Is that a trigger event that would be really relevant to your product or service that you're selling? Identify 3, 4, 5 of those trigger events and look for those in your prospecting process. Like, build a process around how do I identify these trigger events so that you can start repeating that process and efficiently uncovering information where it doesn't take you a long time, or it doesn't take you to a point where you're just gathering any nugget of information that you can and hoping some of it will stick, right? Figure out what specific trigger events will really drive a conversation within your accounts or within your prospects, and look for those. And I learned how to identify signals for those as early as possible. I also tell my reps to use automation to help them do that. If it's contacts when they join a new company as a sales leader, that's a trigger event for us. I'm having them set up automatic searches in LinkedIn, Sales Navigator within their accounts, so that a lot of that can be done on the back end to help them out. Like, there's several ways to use the tools at your disposal to kind of help in that process as well. So, I mean, company alerts, company news, there's so many ways to do it out there, but I would say form a repeatable process that you can scale easily, and try to form it around trigger events if you can, because that's a good signal in your process to help you identify the right information.
Yeah, I think you used a magic word there that everybody tends to shy away from, and it was automation. And that's because when we think about automation, we always think about the messaging part. But we don't think about all the ways that automation can help us identify those triggers, notify us that a change has happened. Those are the pieces of the puzzle that need to be utilized by salespeople today so that they can consistently have that context. Let's talk about how research has changed over the past year, because 2020 was unlike any other year that any sales organization has ever dealt with. And because of that, the way that we do research has vastly differed from what it was back in 2019. So what's changed on our end when it comes to best practices for research? And Jordan, I think I'm going to start with you this time.
I think that it's a lot harder to get more of an understanding of your audience, right? Typically, we have a lot of in-person events and things that we've really heavily focused on to gather some of that data. And now we're in a world where we're stuck behind our computers. The pace of business moves very, very quickly. So I think that, where we used to maybe have more time to research an individual or an organization, because the speed of business has increased so quickly over the last 12 to 24 months, the time that we have to prepare ourselves for those meetings or those conversations is significantly less. So I think that coming up with, a method for preparing ahead of time has to be a lot more precise than it used to,
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit further with you, because you have a very different approach right now that I think is cool. This calendar first approach. Can you break that down for everybody? Calendar first approach, y'all. Write that down.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we're talking about is, once you have this research, once you have the data and you've determined the level of personalization, it's how do you more effectively land that meeting, right? So we use a calendar first methodology. And what I mean by calendar first is it's the sending of a tailored and timely calendar invite as the first step in the follow-up process. So by offering time on the calendar to an individual with a personalized message, you're giving them the opportunity to, one click yes, I'd love to have a meeting with you, or one click no. And what that does is, anybody that you would be chasing for that, yes, I'm interested in having a conversation, all of the work now is already done for you. The rep now just leverages their availability to investigate that person or that company a bit more. And then you're also not chasing the lead, the no's, right? You can take a lot of time to ultimately get to the no. And so by having that opportunity for the customer to, single click yes or no, you're giving that much more time and flexibility for the salesperson to refocus their efforts on maybe the folks that need a little bit more time. So when you're using something like a SalesLoft, right? Let's get all the people that are willing to have a conversation immediately off the table. And then for those that need some more nurturing, throw them into a cadence, try to, develop additional intent for them to have a follow-up conversation. And we're finding that when you use a calendar first approach, not only are you freeing up a bunch of time from the reps, but we're getting 2 to 5x conversion rates because customers are on this very, very fast time of doing business. So it's more of a, yes, I am willing to have a conversation. I'd love to have a talk, or, I need to move on and refocus efforts on those that need a little bit more time. But it's, zero human effort. And, I'd like to hear in the chat, put a 3 in there if you've ever used a calendar invite as a way to try to engage with customer prospect.
Oh, I love it. I feel like, so there's a good question in here, and let's just hop into some Q&A right here because we got some good ones rolling in. And one of the ones is about this, and I think I'm going to go with Jameson on this. Jameson, do you think this is too invasive as a first approach?
I think it's interesting. I mean, we definitely haven't tried it. The way that we kind of approach it is we want to build some sort of positive awareness into like who I am as a rep. So I'm going to do effective multi-touching, so like videos, LinkedIn posts, reaching out to kind of say like, hey, this is who I am, and you have a favorable like opinion about me because you've seen my face, you've seen like my outreach. So once we get kind of like a positive awareness as to who we are, then we kind of open up like, all right, so now is the value that we bring to you as a company, does that fit your role and your responsibilities? And then the last part is kind of building a decision. So like, then it's like, hey, I'm going to try to call you and like get you on the phone because you've seen me. You understand like what we do. We understand like our roles and responsibilities line up. And then the easiest way to make a decision is like get them on the phone, book a meeting there, or like the calendar approach. I think that's like a phenomenal way of going about it.
You can do it based on triggers from intent, right? Someone attended a webinar. So if they had just attended a webinar, now they're on somebody's list, leveraging that level of automation, you can have this outreach that says, hey, you attended this webinar, you showed intent, you wanted to learn more. I'm the person that you would typically talk to. Here's my value proposition and a quick agenda. I'd love to have a meeting. And it makes it so much easier for people to more quickly follow up.
Hey, I love that. I think that salespeople and marketing people might disagree though, right? Because does attending a webinar signify intent? I don't know, right? Like that's kind of a gray area. I'm sure that there are lots of opinions out there. What is the ratio? And I'll go with Liz on this one. What's the ratio seen between research to volume, like quality versus quantity? That's the question here. And can we share a little bit about the KPIs that teams should be measuring when it comes to personalized activities? And I think we got a lot of insights in here collectively.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think like always practice quality prospecting, in my opinion. Like if you're going to want to adopt a personalized approach and you're going to want to be targeted and you're going to want to stand out, like don't be lazy, like practice and go all in and try to adopt that. I would say also though, just don't push yourself to like, I would rather my reps focus on quality prospecting than trying to do both and focus on quantity as well. I think as you build that process, as it's repeatable, as you get used to it, you will get more efficient over time, but start small and focus on quality. I would say when it comes to KPIs, I always like to understand like what are the email opens and replies that we're getting. We're also able to measure like the percentage of personalization that's used in an email, like how much was a template changed from when the template was inserted from when it was sent, which I personally love. I also like to look at like efficiency. So like since we've adopted this process, what's the number of activities or the number of emails sent that it's taken you to get a conversation? And that's just the numbers divided by each other. It's relatively simple. It's different based on whatever motion or if you're inbound or outbound, things will vary. But I think those are a few good places to start.
That's solid. We got some questions here about LinkedIn and what other tools do you guys use other than LinkedIn to do prospecting? So I want to give one out and I want to talk about Sales Navigator. That's not LinkedIn. Those are two different products. People need to understand that if you don't already. Let me tell you, we do some deep dives. I've put a link in the chat for Morgan J. Ingram and Gabe Villamazar's best practices for LinkedIn Sales Navigator. But I also want to point out a couple other ones. Feedly is a great way to get information sent to you so you don't have to go find it. Simply follow the news from an account you're prospecting and it will send that research to you. Bam, you got some context. Owler is another good one. You can go out there and you can look at what a company's ARR is and get a list of their competitors. Maybe some of those competitors are people you already work with. So the context and the value you deliver to them is similar to what you deliver to their competitor, and that's a great in. So there's a couple great tips for different tools that you can use. You guys want to throw out some tools that people use that you guys use personally that are different?
Yeah, we use Owler as a big one for us, especially with competitors and company news. We also use ZoomInfo, and that's a big one for intent. We used to have DiscoverWork, but they became one, and we used to have the intent and the org charts, things like that, along with, so many. Sales Navigator and LinkedIn, I think, is another big one for us.
Yeah, I think for us, we live and die off of Sales Navigator. Because that's going to be the most accurate source of information about who you're reaching out to. And then our own tool gives job updates as well so that you can keep that information fresh and notified. I think a lot of if you're reaching out to VP C-suite, then the company information is phenomenal. If it's anybody below, I would stick to kind of their roles and responsibilities because that's what they probably are more focused on.
That's good. Let's get another question in here. We appreciate these insights. I hope you guys are taking copious notes. I don't know if the recording is going to get sent to you. Don't reach out and ask us for the recording. That's crazy. Everybody be asking us for recordings. All right. So how often do you copy things verbatim from the description of a past post that's on a prospect's LinkedIn? So I guess the question here is how do you use the posts from your prospects to get the leverage? So how do you copy it verbatim? Do you use that same language? Do you allude to it in some way? What's a best practice you guys can throw out there?
I think showing them that you maybe digested what they had said and are able to kind of repeat it back to them, or what you took from it, shows a lot of the value that you derive from it, and that you were, thank you for sharing this type of information, rather than the verbatim copy and paste. Doesn't necessarily mean that you read it and probably is used by others.
Yeah,
I think copy and paste methods to be no matter what.
I have to agree, and going off of what Jordan said, I think the more often you can use the verbiage, the very specific verbiage of the roles you're going after or the types of companies you're going after, that's just something that sets you that much more apart from saying, wow, they actually know that I call my customers clients and not prospects, or they actually looked into that. And it's going to just show that you did your research that much more. So I agree. I'm not a huge copy and paste fan. I would prefer, if there is certain verbiage though that they use that stuck out on their website, use that by all means. That's going to really help set you apart.
Yeah, top tip that almost every rep forgets about. Bro, first step, go look at their website, There is so much information that you just context alone. I saw that new video you released. Great context. I love how you're saying X, Y, and Z. Let's connect. I'd like to learn more. People want to talk about themselves. Give them that window to do it. All right, 2 minutes left. Jennifer, I beat you to the buzzer. I want to make sure that you guys tell people how they can reach out to you and learn more about you, your products, the things that you guys know. How can people reach out to you? Liz, ladies first.
Yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll put my link in the chat or the Q&A, but feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My email is also first.last@salesloft.com. I'm happy to answer any questions. This has been great.
Awesome. Jordan, how do people reach out to you, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat here, or Jordan at Kronologic.ai with a K.
Good. What do you got for us, Jameson?
Cool. Same deal. Reach out via LinkedIn. I'll thread in the chat, as well as Jameson at LeadIQ.com.
That's awesome. All right. So you guys can always reach out to me. I am everywhere. #SayWhatSales. You can find me on LinkedIn. There's my link to go ahead and connect with me there, as well as my Instagram. You want to get a free conversation about sales, growth, development, Instagram is where it's at. John Barrows himself actually does free consulting via DMs on Instagram. You are most likely to hear back from JB directly on Instagram. I want to thank everybody for coming out to the session. Any last minute things that you guys want to say before we let everybody go?
Thank you for having us.
Rush to the podium.
I was going to let somebody else go first. Thank you for having us, and James, you were an incredible moderator. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tenbound. Thanks, James. Always great content. Excited to have you all here and look forward to the conversations after.
Absolutely.
It's been awesome. Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you next year when we do this one more time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.